Welcome to the Global Business Insights podcast, brought to you by PSL. I'm your host, Max Kent, and I'll be joined by my co-host, Dr. Charlotte de Brabant.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining our Global Business Insight podcast, our first episode of 2024. And it's our great pleasure to have a special guest, Jamie Radford, with us today. Hi, Jamie. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you, Max. And let me quickly introduce myself. So my name is Jamie Radford. I'm the CEO and the founder of the Accounts Payable Association, and we'll go into a bit more detail during the podcast.
Fantastic. Well, Jamie, then with no further ado, let's dig right into our first question. Can you share with our listeners your journey in the whole finance industry, starting as a purchase ledger clerk and working all the way up to becoming very much a leader in your field?
I've been in finance or accountancy and finance for 35 years. This year, actually. I started my life as a purchase ledger clerk, as it says there, way back when. So my family all come from a very accountancy and finance background. So I followed the route. I just wanted to follow what the family were doing, could add up. Generally I could add up, relatively good at maths, relatively good at finance. And I went down that route that a lot of people do. I went down the route of straight into industry, working for actually an insurance broker at the time. Loved the purchase ledger side. Loved the sort of paying people. It used to be called bought ledger, actually. So that's how old I am. It's now purchase ledger. And now actually it's accounts payable. As I progressed through my career, I decided that, finance was the right career for me. So I went through AAT. I dabbled in ACCA, so I decided I wanted to become a qualified accountant. And then as I got sort of the latter stages of my career, as I moved from organisation to organisation, I realised one thing that I really enjoyed was managing people. I really like that part. I like fixing process. I like looking at challenges. And as an accountant, you don't necessarily have a lot of those challenges. It's mainly sort of looking at P&Ls, balance sheets, looking at the numbers, crunching the numbers. So I really wanted to go and help people. I worked in lots of shared service centres. And as I walked my sort of career through the shared service centres, the one thing that I really noticed, what really came out, was every area of finance and accountancy had an industry specific body, a professional body that looked after them. So in the accountancy world, that was ACCA, CIMA, ACCA, etc. In credit, it was CICM. In payroll, it was CIPP. So there was lots of these institutes that looked after everybody, apart from the wonderful world of accounts payable. So cutting a very long story short, I decided, look, let's see if we could create something for this wonderful community that we now know as accounts payable. So I went about creating what was then an accounts payable group on LinkedIn, which hopefully your listeners will have heard of. We created a LinkedIn group, which was called the AP Forum. And within a period of 2 years of creating it, that group had grown from an organic point of view to over 26,000 members. So when you have 26,000 members, you realise there's something there for you. And again, cutting a very long story short, I then decided with a group of other influencers, finance influencers, that there was something there. We wanted to go and create something. And that is where I am today. So what was born out of that LinkedIn group gave me the opportunity to become the founder and the CEO of what's now known as the Accounts Payable Association. There's that long-winded answer. So hopefully you can see the milestones throughout my career were very much around, very focused on career in terms of accountancy and finance. I then really transitioned into that people management, process efficiency, fixing challenges, but then ultimately decided I wanted to be a business owner and entrepreneur, which led me to the route to becoming the CEO and founder of the APA.
Fantastic. Thanks again, Jamie. Really great to have you on. And also, it's funny when you work with people, you don't always get the time to have these questions and actually find out all of the, I know some of the story, but you don't get that sort of detail. So as you are the founder of the Accounts Payable Association, I'm really keen to know a bit more about the inspiration, the sort of sparks that gave you that initiative, and some of the evolutions you've seen through that journey since you started it.
Yeah, great question. And yeah, so it's probably very much from a personal point of view that the inception of the Accounts Payable came about. But what we really noticed when we had all these people that were sort of wanting to do something and really wanted a career outside of the norm, something that wasn't just a straight through career as an accountant or wanting to be a finance director or a CFO. So what it really, the driving force was behind it was really to help people and their careers and give them options. And the Accounts Payable Association was born around that there were so many people that really felt they only had one option, and that was to go down, the AAT, the ACCA, the CIMA route in the UK predominantly, where they can then become an accountant, and that was it, career choice. So for us, and for me personally, as I had a very strong background in transactional finance coming from a purchase ledger background, I really wanted to give these people and individuals options and sort of career progression. And that's what we do now as the association. We actually stand for three things. We are a membership community and body, and we have now socially over 50,000 members around the world. Secondly, we stand for courses, qualifications and certifications. So we're giving that back to the individual. We're giving them the talented individuals of our industry, the hard workers, those career prospects. And the third thing, we like getting together for events. So you can clearly see the motivation and the sort of the challenge that really bore out of having nothing there, no industry at all, really creating something for the first time, and now being a real leader, global leader in what we do, is just makes me immensely proud over what we've done and achieved over those 7 years.
Wow, it makes me proud to speak to you here during this podcast. Incredible. Jamie, the Accounts Payable Association has also grown into a vibrant community, as you've mentioned, with global members, significant accomplishments, and including an audience with the House of Lords. Maybe you can share some challenges faced with all the pivotal moments that led to such recognition in your industry.
Yeah, look, it's not been an easy journey. Anybody that's starting either a business for the first time as an entrepreneur or starting a leadership community sort of journey, you will come across challenges throughout your career. Absolutely. And yeah, we've been fortunate over the last year or two to hit the pinnacle in the UK, going to the House of Lords, finding our voice. And one of the things that we really wanted to do when we incepted the business way back when was to give our individuals a real voice, a voice of an industry, of a community, but very, very proudly, most recently, a voice of a profession. So the challenges have been significant as we've gone through. When we started, or when I started it all those years ago, people said you were crazy. You're not going to be able to do this. The financial institutes have been set in stone for 80 plus years. Why would they want to do this? If somebody had thought this was a good idea, they would have already done that. That's life, isn't it? We all have those challenges. And guess what? I decided to not listen. Don't even listen to family and friends, because family and friends, a lot of the time, they tell you it's a good idea when they probably don't really believe that's the case. And what was the driving factor was that I could see the end goal. I could see that I'm going to make people's lives different. And I've had the absolute joy to see people at events like at the House of Lords and our gala dinner conferences, which have well in excess of 500 people, and their careers have taken off, their salaries have increased, they've had families, and they've had to be able to support families because of what we've achieved over those 7 years. So yes, it hasn't been easy, a bit difficult, but actually it's absolutely well worth it.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure to see that. And, having been experienced at some of those events, you can really see how those people now have a true home for their profession, which you've given them, and they're really thriving from that. So it's an amazing thing to see. So I think when I kind of started working with the APA around 22, you had advocacy for change initiative in place. I think that was a significant milestone for you guys, and certainly a great initiative that I saw happening. For our listeners, are you able to elaborate a little bit more on the goals of that initiative, and what sort of impact it had on the APA?
Yeah, very great question. So the idea, as I said earlier in the last question, was really to give a voice to the individuals and a voice to the industry and a voice to the profession. But what better way to do that is to go to the House of Lords, and actually, rather than sort of lobby for change, actually find a voice, start to get the individuals from the procurement world to come along and listen to where we are, get people from governments, local government, working with people like government offices to actually look at what the challenges are. So it wasn't then just on an individual level, people focused. It was then more about the value that we could add as a profession and as an industry. So the idea behind the advocacy for change back in 2022 was that it literally was, okay, we've all found our voice. We as a community and as an industry and a profession, we get together regularly. We all pat each other on the back and we all know how hard we work and we all know how great we are. But let's go and tell the rest of the world. Let's go and make a change and make a difference. And that's what it was. And from that point onwards, actually organizations started to adapt, started to look at what we've been achieving and actually implement these changes in their own businesses and their strategic views of the future. So we actually became, in the transactional finance world, a strategic business partner or business pillar of a lot of the organizations we now work with.
Fantastic. And Jamie, in your LinkedIn profile, you also mentioned the whole passion for empowering individuals, which I very much resonate with, and making a positive impact. That has very much been your driving force behind all your endeavors. How has this passion influenced your leadership style and the initiatives that you've undertaken?
Excellent question. Yeah, again, you can probably tell from the way I speak about the Accounts Payable Association, I'm so passionate about what we've achieved and what we've done. And I say the we a lot. It's not me, it's a we. And the we is stronger than the me. That's what we believe in as a community. We are a community-based business, and everything we do is for the members and by the members. And the idea really is, when I started my career way back when, 35 years ago, yes, clearly I was a young whippersnapper. I really wanted to go and make something of myself. I wanted to progress through my finance and leadership community and sort of career. As I've gone into sort of my latter stages of my career, what I've realized is about giving back. It's about helping other individuals. And one of the things I would say that, very much has driven me is to be a bit of a finance disruptor, somebody that doesn't follow the norm, somebody that wants to make a difference and actually lead from the front. So my leadership style has very much changed. I am now somebody that, yes, I've always been somebody that rolls my sleeves up, shows others how to do that, probably a little too hands-on on occasion if you talk to my team. But ultimately, the passion that I get now is to see others who are going through the same journey that I once went through and actually having a choice. So when I started my career, I had limited choices about the career in accountancy, finance and procurement. Actually, they have a choice now. They have careers of choices. And the great thing for me ultimately is personally, that if you like, what drives me at this point in sort of the latter stages of my career is legacy. I want to leave something behind when I absolutely retire at some point and put my feet up, that I created with a community, with an industry, to say that's what we've achieved. And it's somebody else will take that mantra forward, but actually it's all about legacy for me personally now.
Yeah, and I think using the word legacy is perfect for one of the reasons we wanted to do this podcast is to get people like yourself on there to give those words of wisdom and that advice, and have something that is in place for the next generation of business leaders and aspiring professionals to learn from. And you've got to go through those mistakes and through those kind of journeys, haven't you, I think, to get there. So there's only so much you can say to people other than just you've got to get in there and do it. But with that in mind, based on your 30 plus years of experience, are there any other kind of words of wisdom, advice you could leave for our listeners who may be looking to follow a similar path to yours?
Look, it starts with turning up. I say this to my children, all of my children have different career prospects and want to do different things. I've got a very, hands-on individual, one of my children, my eldest lad, and then I have a daughter, for instance, who's very creative and highly intelligent, and they'll go in different paths. But actually it starts with turning up. And the idea there really is, in terms of whatever you do, whether it's in finance, business, whatever sort of area of leadership or anything you go into, you've got to start. It's like a podcast. When you started this podcast, you've got to do your first one, and it gets better and easier as you go through. So number one is absolutely turning up, making sure that you turn up each day and you try a little harder, and it won't be perfect day one. But actually the long term is set yourself some objectives and some goals They don't have to be huge. You don't have to go and solve world peace or whatever it will be. Actually, it's all about having those micro steps, those little mini steps that move you forward to the end goal. And the one thing for me ultimately that's overseen my entire career is remember where you come from. Absolutely. It's a difficult job to get to the very top of leadership in terms of running businesses or top of finance and being a disruptor. But remember that you've got to work with individuals to get to where you are. So be humble, remember who helped you and supported you, and support them on their journey as well. And remember to always give back wherever you can.
Wow, that's very inspirational. Jamie, another question. The APA community is united by a common goal, including the desire for reward, recognition, and a voice. Maybe you can also share an example how the community has come together to achieve these objectives and what role individuals can actually play in this collective journey.
Yeah, look, it's a great question, especially with our community. All three things there is effectively our mission statement. So the reward, recognition, and the voice of our industry, accounts payable. And the one I'll give you as a perfect example is our conference and gala dinner. Max Max was our guest and came along, and you've seen this physically, Max. When you get 500
Absolutely.
people of the leaders from around the world turning up and actually fighting to actually go on the stage and very confidently, as a community, stand up in front of 500 people and share their thoughts. 7 years ago, that wasn't the case. Nobody wanted to go up on stage. It was myself at the front talking. 7 years on, that community has grown. Their confidence has grown. They've grown as one. And when you talk about reward, recognition, and the voice of an industry, no better example is of the gala dinner. Not only did we have 500 people turn up for the actual conference, when you get 300 plus people all being recognized for awards, recognition at a gala dinner for our very first one that we've ever run, that was a huge achievement. Everybody in the room absolutely loved it, and it set a standard and a benchmark for all of those other institutes, all those procurement institutes, the finance institutes, the marketing institutes, whatever they are. We went and put our stake in the ground and said, we're here, we've made it, we're here, and we're only going to grow from this point of view. So that's a good example of that community coming together.
As you say, Jamie, I was absolutely honoured to be a guest at the last conference, and you're absolutely right. Having been to many sales conferences, procurement conferences, finance conferences, I have to say that accounts payable do it best, and I've got first-hand experience of that. So it's amazing to see. As we come to the end of the podcast, it's some real gems that you've given our listeners there. So thank you again for your words of wisdom and sharing those examples. But as we look to the sort of future, and you continue to lead the evolution of the APA and the industry, what's any sort of future aspirations or goals, or how you see things going into the next stage?
Yeah, look, again, from a personal point of view, I want to be that person that hopefully continues to lead. Be that person at the front, be that person that actually stands in front of a community and hopefully leads them in the direction they want to go. But in terms of the evolution and sort of where we are and what we're trying to change and our voice, we're not there. We've got a voice now for the first time. People are listening. People are recognizing that, but that's just the start of the journey. The next part is absolutely the most important part, and the crucial part is when we get all organizations to recognize the industry and the profession. So what's for the future? More of the same, more conferences, more events, more recognition for individual, but on a global basis. We very much focused on the UK and Ireland in terms of what we've done and achieved. We have members all around the world, but guess what? We're going to go knock on the doorsteps of all the people in Europe, Asia Pac and North America. Why should we be the only one that celebrate the industry? We need to go and do this more globally.
Well, with this strong closing sentence, Jamie, you've very much inspired us over the last few minutes, and thank you for all your great servant leadership and inspiring the industry. And especially also for our listeners, once again for joining in. It was a great pleasure to host you during this session.